for the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of June 12, 2007. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer if you agree tonight. Dear Lord, please bless us, give us all the help you can. You certainly know we need it. Amen.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Jesus.
Speak the truth.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Reverend Crinkla. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cady? Present. Councilmember Cali?
Here.
Councilmember Greenwald?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martina?
Present.
Mayor Fantasia?
Present. At this time, we had a couple items, emergency items, that came to our attention after the agenda was posted on Friday, and our attorney will...
The other thing you need to do, you make two findings. They came to your attention after the agenda was posted, and there's a need for immediate action. I think we can tell you very quickly the need for immediate action on both of those. I don't have them in front of me. If somebody
Yes,
might just...
one immediate action is due to administrative errors, we did not file the continuum of wanting to continue in the consortium agreement. That's the CDBG program that we work with the county, and we need to get those to them so the board of supervisors can resolve that matter. Potential of losing approximately $800,000 with that. And the other one was the tower agreement where we had talked about that before, placement of 911 antennas on our water tower. And that is, again, the chief and I met with representatives from Stanislaus Regional 911, and they're up against a deadline. They need to expend the funds this week. So if we don't do something tonight, we're not going to have the ability to move forward with this particular project. So in our presentation, we will give you the presentation on why we think it's important to move forward. But the potential loss is the loss of increased coverage for our police officers, which would enhance not only their public safety, but the public safety of our general public as well.
So, Mayor and Council, with that, you have the evidence to make both of the findings for both items, so you can just make a motion to add both to the agenda as, I think, J and K.
Yes.
Yes.
10 J and K.
Do I have a motion
I move we add both items to the agenda.
and a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Ceremonial matters, we have none this evening. Items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything that is not on the posted agenda, now would be the time to bring it before us. Yeah. Please, come state your name and address, ma'am. And
Hi, my name is Mary Card. I live at 1116 Court in Newman.
Excuse me, move the microphone up a little bit, please. Just a little hard to hear. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. This is the first time I've done this. I'm asking the council to consider a noise ordinance. We do not have a noise ordinance in place, from what I understand. Just for the sake of loud music, dogs barking, late at night. I know that there's problems in the neighborhood where I live, and I've spoken to a couple other people, and nobody's actually come forward, so I'm here to do just that.
I actually had got a couple complaints. I think they were from, can't remember if they're from your court or not, from other places in town. Also, I had mentioned to the city manager, and I think it got forwarded to the chief, and we are looking at what we have or what we don't have, and definitely we'll take a look at it and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other non-agenda items? Okay, agenda items, when an item comes before us and you'd like to comment, please raise your hand and go to the podium and state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes. No public hearings this evening. Consent calendar. Item A, approval of warrants. And item B, approval of minutes of the May 22nd, 2007 regular meeting. Anything to be pulled this evening? If not, a motion?
Move to approve.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Regular business. Item A, adopt resolution number 2007, next to number, a resolution adopting the budget for fiscal year 0708.
Sonia will be here to make the report.
What we're going to do, we're going to also, let me read B, adopt resolution number 2007, next to number, a resolution establishing the appropriations limit for fiscal year 0708. And C, adopt resolution number 2007, next to number, a resolution of the Newman Redevelopment Agency adopting the budget for fiscal year 07 or 8. We're working on those together, so.
Okay. So beginning with the budget, as we discussed earlier, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit summary now. All the funds are projected to start and end the fiscal year with positive balances. And adoption of the budget includes appropriating $4,222,680 for the general fund, $2,857,390 for the special revenue fund, $2,338,044 for the enterprise fund, and $1,449,208 for the capital project fund. In the special revenue fund, it also includes the redevelopment agency, which is item number 3, of $713 or $713,281. As far as the GAIN initiative, each year we are supposed to establish the appropriate limits. This year, for the fiscal year 2007-2008, appropriations limits are $8,873,038. The city's appropriation subject to limit from proceeds of taxes is $4,222,680. Therefore, the city is under the legal limit by $4.6 million, and the calculation is shown on Exhibit A. Let's see what else. The city's general fund is projected to end the fiscal year with $2,509,022, which is shown on page 4 of the preliminary hearing. Kind of a brief overview, because we kind of went over this before, so if you guys have any questions on anything.
Any further questions on the budget? That was a short version. It took us an hour and 20 minutes earlier to get to that point, but thank you. No questions? Was there a couple things that we had, if we move forward with adoption, that we had the language to put in there, Michael?
Yeah, two items that subject were the increase for the HVAC for the police department. That was an increase of $4,000. And then there was an increase in expenditure in capital repair and replacement for windows, $18,000 to replace the windows in the police department as well. And those were going hand in hand when you buy a new HVAC to make sure you have energy efficient windows. It also goes in and plays into the painting of the building and the new sign, trying to upgrade the current image of the structure itself as it is getting to a point of deterioration.
Questions? If not, then if we so choose to move forward with a motion, we need to include upping the police budget by $22,000, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I think it'll come out of capital repair and replacement.
Okay. Just transfer from that fund to.
That's correct.
Okay. If there's no questions, would somebody like to make that motion?
Go ahead. Well, that might die to lack of emotion.
I move for approval of all budget items as presented.
I'll second.
Second, third, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonia.
I have some more.
Oh, okay.
I'll be here for a while.
Okay. Item D is yours also.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Introduction. I'm
If
sorry.
I may, did that include the appropriation limit? That was all three of the resolutions?
Budget, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
as presented.
That's really great. Thank you.
It's always good to ask the attorney those questions.
That's right.
Thank you. On the record, for the record. Okay, item D, introduction and waiving of first reading of ordinance amending Title 1.09 City Purchasing System of the Newman City Code.
When the auditors came here, they recommended to us that we check out our PO policy and update it. Currently, the city code states that the purchase of supplies and equipment shall be made only by purchase order. What we want to do is increase the minimum purchase order requirement from 0 to 500. That way we're not making unnecessary purchase orders and waste a lot of extra time. We discussed this amount with the auditors and they agree with it, and there are really no big costs associated with it. It's just staff time and then the cost of the POs, which we make in-house, which is less than 2 cents per to appeal.
So the auditors said that most cities, that's the way they do
Yeah,
business
that's-
these days.
That's basically the average, and 0 is just way too low because then it'd expect a PO for every single thing that we do.
PO costs more than the purchase price of an item then. Huh?
Exactly.
Questions? If not, a motion?
I would move to approve.
Second that motion?
Do we need anything special about the waiving or not?
No, that's for, no, we don't have that for these.
Okay.
Just checking here.
Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item E, adopt resolution number 2007, next number, a resolution authorizing fixed assets capitalization policy and procedures.
Okay, in accordance with GASB Statement Number 34, which requires all municipalities to account for fixed assets, and with the recommendation of the auditor, we decided that we needed to establish a fixed asset capitalization policy. So what we did was we created a threshold, which again is the average used throughout different municipalities. The threshold used to capitalize a fixed asset is $5,000. And the threshold is applied to each individual unit of a fixed asset. So if the value of one complete unit, like for instance a desk, isn't over $5,000, then the item wouldn't be capitalized. In order to accurately report the required information, we must generate and maintain an up-to-date inventory, which again would be staff time. And basically there aren't any more additional costs associated with it. It would just be increased staff time. And you have the asset policy attached to the back. So if you have any questions about it, I could answer them for you.
Questions? If not, a motion?
I so move for adoption of Resolution 2007, next number, authorizing fixed assets capitalization policy and procedures.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item F, adopt resolution number 2007, next number, a resolution authorizing a general fund administrative surcharge calculation for non-general fund cost.
Okay, this
You
is
get a
my
lot of
last
camera time, you
one,
know
I
that,
know. First time, and they throw them all at me at the same time. This is also recommended by the auditors when they were here. We do this every single year, and it was included in the budget. What we do is the general fund charges all the other funds basically for time, so we don't have to sit there and track the amount of time that we use. The previous policy is kind of complicated and outdated, so we went ahead, took a look at it. We made it a little bit more simple, which you could see from the backup. The method eliminates the need for constant tracking of time and materials. There are no net costs associated with it. Basically, you transfer an expense from the special revenue fund or the enterprise fund into the general fund. So it'll show as revenue in the general fund. And this year, in preparing the 07-08 budget, $175,252 was included in the general fund as revenue. And so each year we'd go back over and we use the prior year, the last audited year, to do the calculation to see how much we would charge each fund. Basically, it's just for administrative expenses, the time that the staff is spending on other funds. So, does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Sonia? If not, some direction?
I'll move for approval.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Item G, adopt the Stanislaus Housing and Support Services Collaborative's 10-year plan to end long-term homelessness.
I thought I'd bring you something with a short title this evening.
Thank you.
I'm a representative from Stanislaus County. We're part of the consortium. There's 5 cities that are involved. Newman is one of those, as well as Ceres, Waterford, Oakdale, and Patterson. The purpose of this plan is the federal government encourages and actually mandates that there be a plan to assist with ending long-term homelessness. The long-term homeless population uses about half the resources within the community that we live in. Basically, this population is either at risk of homelessness or they are homeless. They usually have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, medical issues that prevent them from becoming able to be housed on the long term. Oh, I was warned I can't go back. I double hit that one. Thank you. So far, at year 2 of the plan, we have a goal over the first 5 years to assist, to create up to 500 permanent housing units at this date. In year 2 of the plan, we have actually met that goal. We've got 105 units at this time. Which is a good sign. This population of long-term homelessness, at any given time, there's up to 9,000 people within the Stanislaus County area, and that's within the population of the whole county, 450,000 people. Of those, 36% are single adults, or 64% are families. And the population that we're focusing on is the long-term homeless, which is 10 to 20% of that overall population. And the concern with that population is they use about half the resources for this whole community, just that small amount of population. So if we're able to house that percentage of the homeless population, we free up half the resources. Currently, there's 343 units within our stock for housing and helping this population. They include permanent housing, which has supportive services, master leasing, and transitional units. Those are units that are assisted by things like Section 8 and things like that. And also shelter plus care and housing choice vouchers, which are directly related to the Housing Authority. They assist this population as well. The benefit of this plan, it allows us to access federal and state dollars. That way we release and reduce the burden on local dollars. The only time that local dollars might be used for a program like this is if it's for leveraging. But if you within your community don't have any substantial homeless population, or you aren't planning to make any permanent housing for homeless population, it wouldn't affect any financial resources within your community. These are just some examples of available funding that's out there, and if we have this program, it allows us to have a pipeline to work with the federal and state government to access these monies. And with this plan, we hope to do new construction, acquisition, and rehab of existing units, as well as set-aside units. And those are units within a housing complex. A percentage could be set aside for serving the chronic homeless population. And there's also MHSA funding, which was a new proposition that passed about 2 years ago, and they're setting aside, I think, about $4 million annually for this housing. And one example of a project that we're going to use as the test project is the Candlewood project, and it's within the city of Modesto. The majority of these properties will be within the city of Modesto and Turlock because they have the predominant amount of chronic homeless population. An example of a unit that's currently been built about a year and a half, 2 years ago, is Miller Point. It has 16 units. Of those, 15 are one bedroom and one is a 2-bedroom. And they directly get supportive services from behavioral health recovery services, and they work together as a one-stop to keep those people housed and off the streets. And I think about 25% of them are able then to transition into permanent housing on their own and sustain themselves. So. And finally, the reason I wanted to bring this plan to you this evening is, as part of the consortium, we have what's called an annual action plan, and part of that plan includes a requirement to have adopted something that addresses the homeless population, so it reduces the burden of these resources within our community. It streamlines it and works as like a pipeline so that if there's any needs related to this population, there's a document that we can reference when we're trying to approach funding from the state and federal government. So that's a quick overview of it, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those for you.
Are you trying to get every city in the county to jump on board? Is that your goal? Or?
We have 5 that we're going to get on board definitely, and then we're going to go to the Board of Supervisors on June 26th. We also have the City of Modesto coming on board, I think, July 2nd. They will be going to their CHCDC committee prior to us going to the board, so they'll have tentative approval. The only one that we haven't gotten confirmation yet from is Turlock, because they've had some transition of staffing, so I think that's the main reason there. And Houston, they're not part of our consortium, though we would try and encourage them as well as Riverbank to get on board. But as far as our consolidated plan, it's not our immediate goal, but we definitely want to approach them at a future date.
If every city was on board in any particular county, would you get extra points for funding through state or local? I mean, state or feds, or no, or?
For feds, it's a definite
Yep.
bonus. There's something called the Housing Collaborative that has access to federal dollars called Supernova funding each year, and we generally get about $1.5 million that's directly related to this permanent housing. And the more cities we have on board, the bigger allocation we'll have overall. So it's a good tool. It just simplifies things. So if someone's asking a question about this, at least we've got something to reference as far as costs related to this type of housing and these types of programs.
Sounds like a good program.
You did say the majority of, I'm sure, that the homeless people are located in the Modesto area.
Yes.
Is there any numbers for the west side that we have?
I know that there are some because they use services, for instance, Second Harvest, their food banks and things like that, but direct homeless population as far as panhandling, things like that, I don't know any specific numbers within the city of Newman. I don't think it would be that large because the majority of those services are within Modesto and Turlock, the supportive services.
So once this is in place, would you actually go out and approach these people? Is that the idea behind it?
The idea behind this is this allows us to then tell the feds when we approach the Supernova funding, for instance, each year, we can tell the federal government that we have a plan that's been adopted and we're working together as a community to solve this problem. It's not going to eliminate homelessness, but we have an opportunity to eliminate the chronic homeless population that uses up all these services, like when they turn up at the emergency, things like that, increases all of our premiums for insurance and stuff like that. So it's just a tool to allow us to approach the federal government and say, we're using this as a starting point of foundation. I don't know if that really directly answers your question.
I guess what I was asking is would this be a tool and a vehicle to approach the homeless people? Is that the idea?
To approach the service providers that work with the homeless so that they know that they can now access federal dollars if they're want to work with us in this plan. So we wouldn't directly talk one-on-one with the homeless, but we would be the liaison. Well, the service providers would be the liaison between the homeless and us. So
many homeless just don't want to be helped.
Right, there is a population of this chronic amount that doesn't want to be helped at all, and there's nothing that we can do about that, but at least we can reduce that percentage. You're correct.
It sounds great.
You said that there was only 64% of them are families, and you said there was, I don't know, was it 10 units or 16 units, but only one was a two-bedroom.
Right, and that site itself was the first site that we've created as a collaboration, and that one was focusing on single adults because historically with the homeless population, they focused on children by themselves, single adults by themselves, but not families. We've got one example, the Santa Fe project in Empire, where it actually helps families. It's a migrant worker facility that during the summer months it's housed, but 6 months a year it's empty because the migrant population goes back to where they were before. We were able to retrofit those units with heaters, house families with children in those units, and 72% of those found permanent housing and jobs afterward. They just needed to get somewhere with a permanent address to get things going. So there are examples within the community, but we're trying to change the focus from just single adults because prevention's a big part of it. If we can help the families and the children, it should hopefully stop this cycle from getting worse. The other population is foster care. When they foster out between 18 to 20 years old, a lot of the families unfortunately don't get revenue from those foster children and they're kind of discarded. So that's another population that needs to be focused on as well. So there's lots of needs out there, but this is just a starting point to have a central focus.
Further questions? If not, some direction?
Mayor, if I may ask the city attorney a question. Staff inadvertently left a resolution out. Do we need a resolution to adopt this plan?
No, you just do it by minute motion.
Okay.
I would move to approve.
I said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
And Ted, just for the reminders, speak in the Mike, or you're going to suffer the wrath of Bob. Item H, adopt resolution number 2007, next to number, a resolution authorizing the Public Works Director to negotiate issue an industrial discharge permit for 1558 N Street with Conestoga Rover and Associates?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, again, we're asking you to review this this report and consider adoption of this resolution. 1558 N Street is located at the corner of Merced Street and Highway 33. It's a former location of a Shell service station, and many of the long-term residents probably recall that. As you may recall, with the older facilities and the underground tanks and the filling patterns that they had, this property did have lots of hydrocarbon, gasoline, oils that were poured onto the site. So therefore, the soil is contaminated, and so is the groundwater in that immediate area. And this item has been mediated for a long period of time. Today, what we're asking is this firm and the county came to us as well as a property owner and asked us if we would consider this request. And what they would do, and the project engineers here, and he'll talk a little bit about it, is install a recovery system which cleans up the soil and the groundwater, and then what it does is releases the product of the water back into the sewer system. The sewer system at the flow that you're looking at is about 7,200 gallons per day. We also folded into this conversation was our chief plant operator, and he was in this meeting with the county and the property owner and the firm as well to make sure that he was comfortable with what was going on. They've also submitted to us several permits that they have, and the closest one that they have to us is in Patterson. So in your memo, we did outline some of the issues that are taking place here, and a lot of them deal with Ordinance 90-4, which really talks about the prohibitive use of sewers. And one of them states that any wastewater containing any gasoline, benzene, and the like shall not be released into the sewer system. Now, the chief plant operator in a memo to his immediate supervisor and the public works director, myself, indicated that they can place a non-detectable limit on that permit. And in our discussions at that meeting, they indicated that they could reach that. When they provided us copies of permits of other cities, there was a detectable amount of benzene that was permitted in some of those municipalities. So we're not saying that we would, but that's something that has been provided us with information. One of the questions that came up during the review of this application was the duration of the period for which they were requesting. Originally, it looked like when it was originally presented to me, 6 months to a year, and the site would be clean. But as our chief plant operator did some due diligence, he learned it's more like 3 to 5 years. Typically, the city does issue industrial discharge permits for a period of 3 years. What we're requesting, if the council so moves forward, is to allow staff to issue a 1-year permit, allow staff at the administrative level, public works, and chief plant operator level to review that after the first year, and if they continue to meet satisfactory conditions identified in the permits, and there is no detectable impact on the wastewater treatment plant, to allow 2 subsequent extensions of 1 year, and that would total 3 years. At the end of 3 years, we would request that comes back before the council. But that's just a staff recommendation. We can take your comments on that. Again, as I indicated, that there's a discharge flow of approximately 7,200 gallons per day. The chief plant operator has indicated to me that he is comfortable with that level, and there will not be a detectable impact on the wastewater treatment plant. And the last thing, again, in Ordinance 90-4, it talks about not being able to discharge groundwater into sewer systems, and that was adopted in 1990. Technology's changed in the last 17 years. This is an indication, and we are in no means asking the council to change that ordinance. What we're asking for is some leeway here, is that that staff can negotiate this and take into account that technology has enhanced this opportunity over the last 17 years, and it may be appropriate to do a pilot project right now under these limited circumstances and move forward with it. So with that, any fiscal impacts would be neutral. All costs associated to the city would be paid by the company itself, and that is part of the discharge permit. And all of our users who have an industrial discharge permit pay annual fees for us processing that discharge. So with that, I can answer any questions. I know a representative from the applicant is here as well to discuss any questions that you may have, and so
What are they looking to build there?
he'll show you. I believe he has some images that he can share with you to show you. It's a temporary facility.
These are pictures of a similar type of system. This one is in stock. The technology we're proposing, it's called dual phase extraction. And it's a technology that's been around for a while. The resolution here is in particular to the groundwater treatment. If you're looking at those pictures, you'll see the three large white vessels. Those are granular activated carbon vessels. So the essence of the system is we pump the groundwater out from some wells on the site, and we process it through those filters, and it removes the hydrocarbons, and then we discharge it to the sewer at that point. And to kind of give you some background, Conestoga Rovers and Associates, we do work for Chevron, Shell, have done work for the other major oil companies, some smaller mom and pop gas stations, and this is common work. If you go to any other city, you'll probably come across a few of these at gas stations. As far back as the 80s when this technology was put into place. And the permit variations from city to city, they do change, but we design these to treat the groundwater to whatever limits that you impose on us. And it's particular to the city and what their treatment plant capacity is, what they can handle. They establish what those limits are, and it's up to us to adhere to them. So the system would look very similar to this. If you've been by it, it's an empty lot right now, and we'd be putting up some security fence around that, and we'd be coming out here twice a month to do maintenance work on it, collect samples to assure that we're in compliance with whatever the permit requirements are. And excuse me.
How often do you say they sample?
What's that?
How often do they sample this 7,200 gallons a day?
We will sample at a minimum whatever the permit requires us to, and if we feel that we need to sample more often than that, we will do that. Typically, we sample once a month. Some systems, the permitting agency requires to sample weekly. It just depends on where you're at. If you're down in San Jose, California, they have a lot of issues with treated groundwater gets discharged to the storm drain down there because they have a lot of issues with the Silicon Valley and the electroplating industry and metals generation. So they are really stringent on monitoring requirements, and so they make a sample on a weekly basis for a lot of constituents. Gas stations, it's pretty much know what the contaminants are. It's fuel and some pretty basic benzene, toluene, things like that. The standard hydrocarbons we usually sample for. So the plant operator, Public Works, they can dictate whatever they would require us to sample for, and we'll work with them to help establish that. The original contaminant, the oil company, is one that pays for the cleanup? Yeah, the state names a responsible party, and in this case, Shell is the responsible party. This particular site was a Shell branded gas station back in the 70s, but it was actually a fuel dispensing facility as far back as 1935.
So there's a lot of older contamination there too, and you probably know the surrounding facilities are gas stations or old bulk terminals. So in this particular case, when the state guidelines kind of started emerging and identifying contamination and adopting orders to name responsible parties, that's Shell got finger pointed with this, and are now have been monitoring the contamination of the site, and now at the direction of Stanislaus County Environmental Health are trying to clean it up.
Sure.
There's several other gas stations in that vicinity along that corridor. Have those been cleaned up, or they're still in the same condition as this one?
The facility that's just across Merced Street, that was an open environmental case, but was closed a few years ago by Stanislaus County. They demonstrated that their contamination has cleaned up. Kind of the new age technology is bioremediation. A lot of the natural occurring bugs can clean up the hydrocarbons, and their release was not significant enough, and apparently that's what's occurred there. So they were granted closure by the health department. Immediately across the highway, there was another, I believe it
76.
76. That is a existing open environmental case, and then there's one caddy corner from where the Shell station was. I'm not certain if that's an open environmental case anymore, but I believe at one time it was. So they all have been in various states of monitoring or remediation.
Sure would be nice to get that corner back on our tax rolls, that's for sure. That's kind of a prime corner coming into town from that area. Questions? Comments?
What you're looking for? I didn't hear your name. I apologize.
Oh, excuse me. My name is Dan Lescure. I'm an engineer with Conestoga Rovers and Associates. I've been working with them for 7 years, and I managed this project at one time, but now I just facilitate engineering at this point for them.
Gotcha.
Give you a little background. We conducted some testing for this technology 2 years ago, and it proved to be feasible. And just last year, we tested a different type of technology. Oxygen injection stimulates the bioremediation I was talking about earlier. And that one didn't pan out so well. And state guidelines require us to develop a corrective action plan and compare remedial alternatives based on feasibility and cost effectiveness. Mostly because there's reimbursement of the funds for doing this cleanup. When you go to the pump and you purchase gas, there's a tax on it that goes into this cleanup fund. It goes to help out the mom and pops, the oil companies do this cleanup. And it pays for the environmental health workers, things like that. So what's behind that is, you want to use those funds efficiently. So the regulations say, determine what is the most feasible and cost-effective approach. And we determined through our testing that dual phase extraction is that approach. So the hang-up is the discharge ordinance, and so that's why we're here today.
Dale, for what we have in place right now as a city, how long do you think? You think, Mike, as Mike said, 5 years? Was that part of the?
I think 3 is probably. It really, the environmental health department is the ones that have to dictate what that is. We establish cleanup goals, and it's predicated by the basin plan for the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the groundwater here is designated as a beneficial use for drinking water, and so typically the environmental health will have us default to that. They'll want us to clean up the groundwater to drinking water standards, and we can come close. We can come very close. There's a point where we reach the cost-effective limit of that technology, and then at that point we let it's called monitored natural attenuation, the bioremediation kind of take over at that point. But it's at a point where we're confident that there's not going to be an impact to any receptor. So I would say 3 years or so, this technology will reach its cost-effective limit, and then we'll move into that bioremediation phase. Then at that point, you'll see all our equipment will be gone and out of there.
And that property will be,
He will be able to move forward with whatever development plan he has in mind.
another gas station. Sorry.
One further question, forgive me if you
Never
covered
happens.
this and I didn't catch it. Is there any noise involved or any odors, fumes?
The one component of the system is the treating the groundwater and discharging. The other component is, it's called vapor extraction. And we essentially, we have a pump down in the well pumping groundwater out, but we also apply a vacuum to these wells. And it pulls air through the soil, and it volatilizes the hydrocarbons and pulls them out. And we essentially have a big oven, and we burn them up. And there's an emission out a stack from it. We get a permit from the local air district to install and operate that thing. There's a large pump on that. It's like a 25 horsepower pump, and it does make some noise. Commercial area next to the highway, I don't think it's going to be significantly more than any kind of background noise you might come across there. Probably in the range of 120 decibels maybe. If you think a standard air compressor is in the range of 80 decibels, so a little louder than that. We'll fence it in to try to mitigate that noise, and it has silencers and things on it. That's probably the best we can do without fully enclosing it.
So that whole corner will be fenced off. I was just reading, and it talks about the bag filters will be routinely replaced on a monthly basis. Then the spent bag filters will be housed in 55-gallon drums. Then the drums will be hauled off for appropriate disposal when full. And then parentheses it says annually.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, how many 55-gallon drums are going to be stored there?
2.
That's it?
Yeah.
Someone wanted to talk, I thought it'd be more, but
Yeah, the
okay.
filters, they're not very much different than, say, a swimming pool filter.
Okay.
It's about yay high, about that big, and we replace them on a monthly basis. It's just, it filters out sand, silt, things like that.
And Council, if I may add, in our discussions that we had with the applicant, the property owner in Stanislaus County, was the facility will not be out on the corner. It will be back adjacent to the railroad tracks and then off of Merced Street, approximately 100 feet. Because they can put that facility anywhere, and then they just trench over and get and pipe that stuff there. So that's the location. So it doesn't have an aesthetic impact, immediate aesthetic impact by being, right in the corner of Merced Street and Highway 33. It's back against the railroad tracks, and then move towards where Mr. Souza's office is. Maybe probably off of Merced Street by, at least 50 to 100 feet off of there, so if not more.
When we go through the approach installation of the system, we will approach your planning department, building department, to have them review and issue any applicable permits. Everything will be seismically anchored and secured, and whatever those departments require of us, we'll adhere to.
Further questions? Comments? If not, some direction?
I would move to adopt resolution number 2007, next in number, a resolution authorizing the Public Works Director to negotiate and issue industrial discharge permit for 1558 in Light Norris Street with Conestoga, Rover, and Associates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item I, adopt resolution of the City Council of Newman initiating proceedings and declaring their intent to levy and collect assessments for the city's landscape and lighting district zones 1 through 5.
Mayor, Council, these are procedural items for us in our landscape and lighting districts. You got a copy of the report. As the council does recall, we did hire NBS to conduct these landscape and lighting district evaluations and reports for us beginning last year, and they did an excellent job and identified a large sum of money that we didn't currently know was available to us. So anyways, we've contracted with them again. This is the first step in allowing the city to place this assessment on the tax rolls and collect it in the forthcoming year.
Okay, Tom says we could do the second one together here. Adopt resolution declaring its intention for the levy and collection assessment for the city of Newman landscape and lighting maintenance district zones 1 through 15, fiscal years 06-07. Questions? If not, direction?
I so move for approval of both resolutions.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And item J, adopt resolution number 2007, next to number, authorizing the city manager to execute a cooperative agreement with Stanislaus County for CDBG consortium purposes.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another procedural item, and staff is making the assumption that the council wants to continue with the consortium effort. As you may recall, those are some of the projects that we have. Is the Inyo project that is now getting on the way, the Pioneer Park bid that you just awarded last week, and then in the coming year we'll do some repair and replacement of some underground infrastructures in the central residential district. By continuing on and authorizing the city manager to execute this cooperative agreement, we stand to gain approximately $850,000 over the next 3 years to use for projects that meet the target income groups, the lower income groups, and we'd have to demonstrate how those projects are meeting the target income groups, but we can do that. So with that, we're asking you to adopt this resolution and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement and continue with the county CDBG consortium.
Questions? If not, direction?
I make a motion that we adopt 2007 XX, authorizing the city manager to execute a cooperation agreement with Stanislaus County for CDBG consortium purposes.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And item K, review request from Regional 911 to add additional radio antennas to enhance our coverage here on the west side.
Mayor and members of the City Council, thank you for taking this item as an emergency item tonight. This item goes back to the May 22nd council meeting in which this was discussed. This is the Stanislaus Regional 911 equipment installation. And that report was tied in with the increased costs in our dispatch services. And Mayor, with council's permission and indulgence, I'd like to bifurcate the discussion on the radio equipment versus those costs. Separate.
Oh.
It's a big fancy word.
No kidding. I'm gonna see a Union City word.
I got a few more of those too. Thank you. At council's direction today, city manager and I met with two representatives from Stanislaus 911, Kurt Klein, who was here and addressed the council in the May 22nd meeting, as well as the Deputy Director of Technical Services, Wayne Stalon, S-T-A-Y-L-O-N. And the discussion centered upon the benefit to the city of Newman and public safety for the citizens of Newman. And in this discussion that we had today, it was quite apparent from both Mr. Klein and Mr. Stalon that we would receive increased radio coverage and enhanced signal strength by the installation of this equipment. And it also enhances our radio interoperability on a county-wide basis, because the problem we're faced with in this county, as well as many other counties, is different law enforcement agencies, public safety agencies, are using different radio bandwidths, different frequencies. And the problem is when you have a regional situation or incident, you're trying to bring all the resources together at the same time and be able to talk and communicate on different radio frequencies at the same time. We just had a situation that I'll report out later on tonight of a lost child last week, in which we brought in resources from Gustine, the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, and so on and so forth, and trying to get everybody talking together is very difficult at best. This project would install 3 radio antennas on the water tower, and it would be antennas for VHF, UHF, and the 800 megahertz. And the 800 megahertz antenna really has my interest peaked because that is what Turlock PD uses. And if we were to dispatch on Turlock PD, we would have an 800 megahertz antenna installed locally that we would be able to use in case we should go to Turlock for their dispatch services. So the benefit to Newman is great. The way it was described to us, the antenna that's mounted on Mount Oso, we're kind of in the shadow of that signal strength. We get it, but it's not to full strength. This antenna installation on the water tower would enhance our radio frequency and the strength of that frequency. And another problem we have is certain buildings, depending upon the construction of the building, we have difficulty using our radios to radio outside of that building. This would also have a beneficial effect to that, increasing our signal strength. But it's not 100% dependent upon the construction of the building. So with that, we can now go into a discussion, if you want, on the cost issues, on dispatching, but today's discussion really focused on the benefits to Newman and the citizens of Newman and public safety.
Chief, who will own this system? In other words, if we change and go to another dispatch, we then in turn need to capitalize and own the system ourselves? If they take it down, what's the procedure?
No, the equipment would stay where it's at. Stanislaus 911 would continue to own the equipment, but yet the way it was presented to us is that if we were to go to Turlock, they would allow us to access that equipment, and they wouldn't exclude us from using that equipment.
Also, there was additional space that could be, additional racks could be placed within the building that allow us to expand any system that we go to. Also, I think net velocity and on there we can clean up some of the work on there and make the tower a lot cleaner by moving some of the equipment indoors. So one of the big questions that the chief and I had was, how does it affect us if we elect to go with another dispatch service? And there is no net effect. Actually, it turns out to be a positive effect because of the fact that we do have a receiver that'll be here that'll transmit to the new dispatch service, and that'll reduce some of our costs. And so we just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a negative impact upon that. And it turns out it is a positive impact. Now there is and we did indicate this in our last report, there is a small electrical cost to operate this particular facility. They estimate in the $20 to $30 a month range. They're more than willing to put in a meter, so that there's absolutely no cost to the city on this.
I have a couple questions. When Mr. Klein was here and made his presentation about the antennas, I specifically asked him how it would enhance the city of Newman's radio reception, having knowledge that the city of Newman sits in a hole, and we've had a lot of problems, and thus the reason why we put in and bought voting receivers and installed them into the AT&T cell site, and we have T1 lines that run to dispatch. And when I asked him how it was going to enhance, and I asked if it would increase, he said no. At that meeting, he said no, it would not. It would help everybody else, but would not help Newman. And now I see, now they're saying that it will help us. I guess my question is, what happened between May 22nd and now to change things?
It could have been the fact that maybe he wasn't prepared for the question, but the way it's represented to the chief and I today is that there's a receiver up on the tower that's tied into a T1 line. So when our officers transmit back to dispatch, it hits the water tower, goes to the T1 line and goes directly over there. So you actually get you have the one on the AT&T tower, now you'll have a second receiver in our community for which not only can our officers communicate with dispatch, but it was my understanding, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, our officers can communicate with other officers at a...
Exactly right.
Well, currently, right now, if they talk on their main channel, channel 1, there isn't an issue getting out on channel 1, or there wasn't. The issue was channel 3, and that's why we put in the voting receivers. We put in 2 of them and ran T1 lines, which then increased and enhanced the reception. I'm not opposed to this. I'm just trying to get some answers from Mr. Klein's presentation, saying that it would not benefit us, it benefited everybody else, and which raised an eyebrow for me as to why they wanted us to pay for everything, and the county keeps increasing our dispatch fees, but yet they want something free from us, and it's not going to benefit us. If it's going to benefit our guys, hey, no problem, let's do it and be done with it. But
The city manager was clearly represented to us that this would be a benefit to us, and it would enhance our signal strength. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We didn't get into the level of discussion of each separate radio channel. We didn't have that detailed discussion, but it was the overall UHF, VHF, and most importantly, the interoperability on a regional basis when we have to go to the mutual aid channel.
which we currently do not have.
Which I don't know if we do or don't. I'll tell you the truth.
We don't.
Okay. But knowing that causes me grief and consternation. And if this gets us closer to having that radio interoperability, I would.
I totally
implore the
agree,
council to-
and I raised the question when I attended an M-SIMS training with
Gary
Henshaw.
Henshaw.
Because I have been so intimately involved in this whole process for many years, and it was really a pet peeve of mine that we could not communicate with fire. We couldn't communicate with anybody else because certain fire chiefs were angry because they couldn't be on the SO channel, so therefore they weren't on SO. So they apparently have gotten beyond all that stuff.
It doesn't sound like it's a territorial issue at this point.
Right.
It sounds like with the Homeland Security grants and mandates at the federal level.
So I guess, are we going to add additional frequencies and channels to our current radio system that would enable us to have the interoperability?
There was 3 channels that they mentioned specifically: interoperability on VHF, interoperability UHF, interoperability on 800 megahertz. So if those are new channels, again, we didn't have that level of detail if those are new channels, but those are the interoperability channels that they were focusing on.
And plus, 800 system runs off a trunk system, which is different from UHF, VHF, and Turlock is the only agency in our county that has 800 system.
Right, in our county. And Gustine is also on the 800 system,
Right.
our neighbor to them.
Through Merced County.
Right, exactly.
They're on their trunking system.
Right.
Yeah. So I say I'm all for it, but I guess I still would like to understand what happened between May 22nd and now.
And I wish I had an answer for you, Councilman. And unfortunately, Kurt wasn't here, and I was remiss in not inviting him here to answer these questions. But it was clearly represented that this would be an enhancement to our radio system.
Is it going to cost any more?
Well, and the purchase of the equipment, antennas that would be installed are through a grant, and that's why we're asking you, and we thank you for putting this on as an emergency item. And that grant, if it's not purchased by this Friday, they lose the funding. So that's why we're asking that this was an emergency item. So there is no cost to it. Again, this is I believe this is a Stanislaus Regional 911, not necessarily a Stanislaus County project. So, but it doesn't increase our fees. It doesn't decrease our fees, and that is a continuing saga that the chief and I will continue to explore, because $150,000 for dispatch fees is a significant cost to this community. And realistically, that's at least half a police officer that could be on patrol.
And with other fees for other agencies in this county going down.
Yeah.
So we as a small city still get stuck.
That's correct.
when Stanislaus County decides they want to increase our fees, and we're pretty much left with paying them.
Yeah, and just a quick point of clarification. We say Stanislaus County, but they're actually in the same boat as we are because it's Modesto
Right.
that is doing it. Because Modesto has, and the mayor can speak about this, has a predominance of members on that JPA.
Yes, they do.
You know, they got their chief and they got their
Fire
police
chief, police chief, and fire chief, yeah.
Yeah, so they got a controlling interest on that board, and how that needs to get changed is one thing, but you know,
We were
I
lucky.
don't want to necessarily place it unburdenedly on Stanislaus County, but and to be honest with you, their CEO has been very graceful in helping Newman, because really we're just kind of out there. You know, it's the JPA is made up of the city of Modesto, the city of Newman, and Stanislaus County. Now, their CEO was very graceful in allowing us to come in under the fold of the county and extended some reduction in fees to us that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to get if we would have been out there on the island like the city of Modesto. So I want to give that recognition to the CEO for doing that. So, but that's another issue that we'll be dealing with and continuing to report to you on over the next couple months.
Chief, I would just add, and I support it if we do this, but I would ask that you monitor and let's see, does it actually help? Because if it doesn't actually help, then I say we start charging them or we remove the antennas. Period. Because it's easy for them to say, well, at one time, no, it's not going to help. Now, yeah, it is going to help. Proof is in the pudding, and I would say let's watch it. And if it doesn't assist us, it doesn't help our police officers, then I would say then we start charging them an arm and leg for it, or we remove it.
And if I may, I recognize and understand your frustration, because I'm a straight shooter, and when I ask a question, I want a straight answer. And I don't like when people give me 2 or 3 different versions of an answer. So, again, through the city manager, we will definitely get in contact with Kurt Klein, the gentleman who has given 2 sets of answers, get the ultimate and final answer, and perhaps report back to council this Friday in the city manager's correspondence.
I just want to say we were lucky years back to get a seat on this board. And, I'm the representative and we keep it up. And I think what happened is the director at the time actually lived in Newman. And that's how we got a seat on this board. Otherwise, little Newman would have never got a seat. So,
Right.
Yep. But as city manager said, we are just one vote, but we are still there to voice our opinion. So it's very important. Any further comments, questions for the chief? If not, some direction.
I would move to approve. How are we going to motion this?
Yeah, what I would request is that council approve and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Stanislaus County and Regional 911 for a land lease and tower access.
Right.
Just what he said.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
Chief.
And item L. We didn't know there was an L, huh? Comments from our superintendent, Mr. DeMartini.
Superintendent.
What's that?
Supervisor.
Supervisor.
What'd I say?
Superintendent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Jeez.
was looking for Rick.
Sorry. Jeez. It's been a long day and a long night. Sorry, Jim. I apologize for that. Superintendent, supervisor, you probably wouldn't want to be a superintendent. Now, that's probably that's a bad deal, huh?
I don't have anything to do with the school district. That's my wife's department. Okay, good evening, Mayor Fantasia, council members. I just have one item tonight, but this is reasonably an urgency item. And I want to go into a little bit of detail, but it won't take a lot of your time. This concerns the county's scrap metal dealers ordinance, which was passed by the Stanislaus County on March 17th of this year. As you know, the Stanislaus County does not have jurisdiction over the cities, and so our scrap metal ordinance, does not take effect in any of the cities. So I am going around to the cities and asking them to adopt our ordinance. Stanislaus County, as well as really nationwide, has experienced significant scrap metal thefts. the copper wire, aluminum, and brass in particular, and the non-ferrous metals. At our Fink Road landfill this last November, we had our extractor, our methane extractor, damaged and actually destroyed. Cost us $100,000 to fix this extractor, and it had about $300 worth of copper in it. So the problem is the scrap metal dealers. And I think some of them, although not all of them, are buying stolen material. Some of them know it. So we have come up with an ordinance there to deal with this, which we think is a good one. Now, the reason that this is more of an urgency item for the cities is there is a bill, it's Tom Berryhill's bill, Assembly Bill 844, which has just passed through the Assembly and into the Senate now. This started out as a very good bill. We had worked with Tom, and by the time it got amended and sent back and forth between committees, the bill, I don't think much of it today. But what is important and significant about this bill, though it does correct some of the problem, but it prohibits cities and counties after July 1st, 2008 from enacting any ordinance dealing with this issue. So an ordinance, in our ordinance, is much tougher than the state's, believe me. You know, I'll read off just a few provisions about them. So in order for Stanislaus County to be securely protected under the ordinance, the cities need to adopt it. Now, the county council said that a copy of our ordinance was sent to Newman, but I have a copy tonight if you want one. What our ordinance does is it licenses scrap dealers in a different way. It licenses them similar to like pawnbrokers. They must have background checks, and they have to have a little more scrutiny than just a regular business license. It also requires the scrap metal dealers to report all sales at the end of the day or the beginning of the next day to the sheriff's department. So if there's a major theft of copper or aluminum, the sheriff's department would be notified of who was buying and how much material. So we'd be able to zero in on it a little bit better. It also requires the seller of the scrap metal to provide sufficient identification, driver's license, and most importantly, what's new in this is a fingerprint. So we can adequately track who is selling this material if there is a problem. It requires the scrap dealers to notify the sheriff's department immediately if they suspect that any of the non-ferrous metals are used by public utilities or public facilities. It limits the age of the sellers to 18 years old. Right now there's no limit. It also limits the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I have been told that there was one scrap metal dealer that they found open one night at 2 o'clock in the morning. And believe me, there is no reason for a recycler to be open at 2 o'clock in the morning if he's running a legitimate business. So this would put an end to that. And also, very importantly, that the people are not paid in cash anymore. They're issued a check. And so and there's a few more minor provisions in it, but this is the bulk of our ordinance. The state bill that Assemblyman Berryhill has been watered down to the point where I suppose if I was up there I'd vote for it, but it's really not as good as what the county has. And keep in mind that if we do not do this county-wide by January 1st, we cannot do it any further past that. I have talked to both Kathleen Galgiani, who represents this area. I'm just a few days ago at the chief's retirement, and she is co-sponsor to this. And she said this was the best they could do. So it's better than nothing, but it's not that good. And it gave us a window of about 6 months to get a local ordinance enacted. I've talked to San Joaquin County last week. They are going to adopt Stanislaus County's ordinance in its entirety, really without any changes, because there's a rush for this. And we've done a lot of research and work on this ordinance, and it is a good one. We spent a lot of time on it. But Stanislaus County really needs to be together, because if we have one weak link, and I don't even know if you have a recycler here, but you could get one that opens up next month if you don't now. And if you do not adopt this ordinance, then the weak link would be here, and stolen material would be coming here. If every city adopted it, as the county has done, it would secure the county where everybody would be under the same regulations. That the sheriff's department would be notified of all sales of scrap metal. It's also worth noting that this ordinance that we have only regulates non-ferrous metals, copper, brass, and aluminum. We do not regulate in any way cans, bottles, plastic, cardboard, anything of that sort. Those can be paid in cash. Nothing has to be reported for those, only non-ferrous metals. So I just wanted to mention that. I would be glad to give a formal presentation, should you want it, with county council as we try to present our case to get the cities to come on board with this ordinance.
Well, sounds like a good idea. You say you already forwarded a copy to the city manager, Jim, and put it on a future agenda.
I have a copy.
Oh, you have a copy ready? Good. Yeah, we'll get it on a future agenda and let you know, Jim, and yeah. it'd
Okay,
be-
if
yep.
you'd like a presentation by our county attorneys or myself on the details of it, the county does urge the cities to adopt it, and we think it's a good ordinance. We spent a lot of time on it, and if you decide not to this year, there is no doing it in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you, Jim.
much.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim.
Item from city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I just wanted to thank the council for adoption of the 2007-2008 budget. We as staff believe we worked hard to get a balanced budget before you, and you saw there were cuts in there from what the requested amount was and what the city manager had to recommend. But we believe it enhances the service levels that we will be providing our constituents and our residents here in the city of Newman. It continues to move forward our infrastructure master plans and other major projects like the Aquatic Center project and the Plaza project. So again, I want to thank the council for going through that with us and adoption of that budget. Speaking of projects, we are at this point in time still moving forward with our Aquatic Center and our Plaza project. Today, as part of the Plaza project, we met with property owners that are adjacent to the current property. So basically, all the property owners that are between Tulare and Fresno and Main Street and Highway 33, we asked all those properties to come in. At this particular time, we probably got a representation of maybe 40% of those. So we're going to go out and make individual contact with the other property owners. One of the property owners actually sits on the Plaza committee, Ms. Stevens. She indicated to us she wasn't going to be able to attend, but we fully anticipate her cooperation. The other, we have identified and made contact with the other property owners. Unfortunately, they just had something come up that they were unable to attend today, but we'll continue to make access and progress with them. The playground, the bid that you awarded for Pioneer Park, at your last meeting, we have met with the contractor, and we're moving forward with that. Staff, what we did, we took the playground equipment to the Parks and Rec Commission, and also to get their comments on it. They liked the choice, the second choice, which was the one that had a shade canopy structure on there as well. So they endorsed that one, and that project is moving forward. In fact, we're already sending out invoices. Got our first invoice because we need to expend some of those CDBG funds. So that'll be moving forward. Playground equipment will be installed prior to Fall Festival. Unfortunately, I can't say that the bathrooms will be complete by there, which is
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not as big as issue because we use the portables because of the total number of residents that attend that event, we will use portables on there. But I think it is important, and it is a good opportunity to show the public and bring out that new playground equipment. And I think you'll see lots of children out there enjoying that facility and getting rid of the sand. It'll be very enjoyable to watch. I know my kids are going to enjoy it. So.
The only thing we'd have to keep in mind is if we did remove the old bathrooms prior to the fall festival, there was a couple electrical panels that we use that are
We
right
will
there.
not
So we'd
be
have
re-
to,
yeah.
like,
We-
maybe have a little portable one or something there.
Yeah, we will not
Yeah.
remove that one until it's
Yep.
time to put the new one online.
Okay.
You did hear a request for a noise ordinance today, and the chief and I have been discussing not only that ordinance, but several other ordinances. We have pockets throughout our community that have made it unenjoyable for property owners based upon the behavior patterns of their neighbors. And a lot of that is loud noise, continuous loud noise, and other unruly behavior that is not befitting of the city of Newman. So the chief and I have gone through and with the assistance of our city attorney have identified some areas that we could beef up our ordinances. We want to make sure that every resident in the city of Newman has a safe place and can enjoy their property and not be held hostage by their neighbors. And there are pockets within the community that does exist. So we're going to try to root that out, and we're going to use every tool that we have at our disposal, and that includes the cooperation of the city attorney, who is
Michael, can I ask that you include in that the use of generators in residential areas? I.e., one house now has 2 generators running to supply power to their house. Apparently PG&E no longer supplies them power.
Correct.
So now there's generators.
Okay, we will definitely do that. And that can be under the noise as well, because
it could.
So because our noise ordinance, as we foresee it happening, doesn't have time limitations on it.
And maybe we could tie a pollution element to that as well.
Excuse me?
A pollution element to it.
Yeah.
For
Maybe
the
on
gas
get
generator running 24/7.
And so our noise ordinance that we are considering and researching right now hopefully will not have a time element on there. Now there will be exceptions, construction and public works projects and the like, but we want to make it to where you don't need a complainant either. So if somebody calls in, the police officer can go out to the site, and there's some categories that he can use his sound judgment to see if there's an impact here. And we'll bring all that before you, though.
Well, Michael, we're not completely void of regulations as far as.
Well, the
we
minimum.
do have on the books, don't we have some?
We have some minimal ones that are infractions, and it's just they're very tough, and you need a complainant right now. So the problem is when these people are being held hostage by their neighbors, it's tough for them to come out and point the finger because there's retaliation. What we're trying to do is remove the victim, if we would. You're allowed to call in. The officer can come and verify the complaint, and if he does, he's able to cite, as opposed to, well, I got to see if I can get a complainant to follow through with this one. And so that's kind of where we're at, to try to take that out of it. And intimidation is a big factor in a lot of these cases, and we're trying to remove that so that our residents can come out there and our officers can exercise judgment. And some of the ones we're looking at is, you get a warning, you get a second, a third time they come out, they could take your stereo system, just haul it on off. Those are that's the way some of the other cities do it. So if you don't want to comply with the officer's request, then that could happen to you. So
We'll be setting up our own stereo shop.
correct. Some of those also, the ordinance that you'll probably see here forthcoming this summer, the social host, the gentleman from Modesto, he came forward. There's lots of communities that are adopting that. We're talking with Turlock to see what the kind of alterations they did on that. But, this is the compounding effect, giving alcohol to minors, loud music, all these things kind of, can transpire in these neighborhoods. And it's a compounding effect, and, residents shouldn't have to live like that. So. Just a quick report. We did have a successful picnic that we invited you all to, and we had a excellent left fielder, Councilman Kelly out there. And someone made a great analogy, and it was one of our team members. He said, "Oh, Council Member Kelly, he's like Yoda. You know, he walks around with his cane, but when that ball was hit, he'd jump out over there, snag that ball, and he'd go back to his cane. You know,
It was the shortstop that did.
yeah, he did. He did.
Nothing came through that shortstop.
He did an excellent job. Unfortunately, City Hall, we were 1 and out, but we made a very respectable showing. So, and we had,
was a lot of fun.
if we had to guess, 110, 120 people show up for this event. People brought their families. Miss Terry Heiberger and her husband bought a water slide that all the kids enjoyed throughout the whole day. It was a huge hit. So I want to thank Terry. Terry's the one that really spearheaded this project and put it together. And you know, to the benefit of all of our families here in the city. I think every employee that did attend and brought their family really, truly enjoyed it. And again, it's all because of Terry. She's the one that spearheaded it and kept putting it out there until we bit. And when we bit, we all had a lot of fun. So now they want to do it again soon. So
I was disappointed in the police department because the way they went into it, here I'm getting a Charlie horse. They went into the last inning losing, and all of a sudden they're threatening people with tickets. And all of a sudden they scored, 4 unearned runs or something?
probably not the only thing you'd be
What you call
disappointed about.
intimidation.
Hey, I shouldn't have said, yeah.
So with that, I will turn it over to any other department head that has something to report.
I know we had some great presentations during our budget talks from the staff members. Any other further staff reports?
City Hall's just bitter because Recreation beat them in the first game.
Oh, jeez. What's her budget?
I don't know. Did I just say nice
less
things about her,
now.
though? Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Everybody played well. With summer upon us, we are very busy. We're currently registering regular soccer registrations right now. That ends on Friday. Late registration continues until June 29th. We are also registering for soccer camp, which runs August 6th to August 10th, basketball camp July 23rd to July 27th, and we're accepting registrations for both of those until July 16th, I believe. Yesterday was our first day of arts and activities. We began with 18 participants this year. Last year on our first day we had 5, so we were pretty excited with that. Today was our first swim field trip to Gustine. Alicia escorted 9 children to the pool. They all had a great time from what I understand. And Friday, June 8th was the first day of summer. And with the 3 days we've opened the teen center during the summer, we've had over 30 kids each day.
Good.
So we're booming over there. And as of June 1st, we are open till 9 p.m. on Friday nights. First Friday night, we only had about 3 kids until about 8:40. But last Friday night, she said she had about 8 kids till 9 o'clock.
Wow.
So, any questions?
Yeah, Terry, I do. It's kind of been brought to my attention, and I've heard a lot of complaints with our baseball program, to the point where I started attending and just watching and watch my little neighbor boy play. And what input does the recreation department have with the baseball program at all?
The current program?
Yes.
We have no input on how they run it. We just
How did that come to be? Because it was run under recreation for many years.
that was through our former city manager John French wanted them to take their own insurance and become their own group.
Well, that answers
that
part
they
of
were
that.
not under
But
the umbrella of the city, so therefore that gave them.
it's my understanding that they've created their own board, and now there's a board of directors, I guess, that runs the baseball program. And it's my understanding that board hasn't changed for a while. And I guess what I'm hearing is just complaints that they manipulate the rules in terms of when kids become eligible. They change dates for birthdays, and now there's 13-year-old kids playing with the little kids, and I don't know. But so I started watching and going to some of the games, and I saw several incidents where a certain thing would happen on the field, and the coach would go crazy and yell and scream at a couple of the umpires, and So one particular incident I observed, and I saw that the poor kid that was umpiring totally didn't know. He made a call, but then after the coach started arguing with him, so I just kind of wandered over and asked him what happened, because I have a little bit of knowledge of baseball rules, and I asked him and let him know that actually the rule and the call that he made was incorrect. And his response to me was, "What am I supposed to do? He's a board member." So, and I've been hearing a lot of complaints. I guess my question is maybe it's time that we take a look, and maybe it's time that we take back the baseball program. And I watched what I thought was going to break out into a fight one night between a couple of coaches and a board member, and I kind of sat back and watched, and they finally resolved their differences after yelling and screaming, and one went one way and one went the other way. And it's my understanding that now the board president, I guess, resigned recently, and so there's turmoil. There's a lot of turmoil. And I'm just wondering that maybe we as a city should take that program back and put it under Terry's tutelage. I mean, she does a great job with everything else. I don't know if you know, but I just, I see a lot of things that have gone on over there when I was hearing all this stuff, and I didn't know if I was the only one that was hearing it, but I heard tonight that I'm not the only one that's heard it. People coming to my house, people calling me, and so I finally went and just watched. And I'm just wondering if we ought not take that program back under the tutelage of our recreation department.
And I will echo every word you said and more. I've always made comments that the baseball program's the worst complaint I get about of everything, and it really is. I mean, this last week my phone was ringing off the hook. I have attended games also, and I have no children, just to see friends of mine, their grandkids, their kids, just to see what's going on. And I agree with you 100%. It's ugly out there, and it's embarrassing that they're doing those things on city fields. And I agree with you that we should take it back.
You get more complaints from Little League than you do the city manager?
I do. Amazing, huh? It's amazing.
Wow.
So
For now, anyway.
Well, let me kind of give you my response. First and foremost, I don't know that the city can do anything to take anything back because it's not ours. So, we gave something away. It was a baseball. There's a board. To be honest with you, I don't know the specifics about how you get on the board. I do know a lot of those people, for whatever it's worth, do put a lot of time and energy into that program, and it's not an easy program to run. With that being said, though, at the discretion of the council, if you so desire, if you want to ask me to meet with the board, to talk about some of these complaints and to really look into this, I can do that for you and then report something back to you. That's about where I would probably tell you where we should go as a city is.
Tom, let me ask you. I mean, it was a city-ran program. Now it's been turned over to a board. Do we as a city?
Well, I think, I was thinking the same thing as Mike just mentioned, but again, they are using our fields, and there's an agreement for that, so I think that's where we should start, and that's probably our ultimate hammer and control over the program.
Excuse me. Check out if there's a signed agreement to use our fields. If not, even if they have a board and they have nowhere to play,
Well, if there's concurrence amongst the rest of the council, I would like to have our city manager look into it, meet with them, and if there's a way that we can take that program back over, or if we run our own program on that field, they can take their program and go somewhere else.
Again, my comment is look, I think the goal of both the current board and the city are the same. We want great programs for our kids to have recreational opportunities, to get trained in baseball, to have a fair and level playing field, that you can have a well-run baseball program.
But what we don't need is a lot of yelling, screaming, and swearing going on.
Yeah, and so the details need to be worked out. And again, with the council so desired, I am willing to sit down with the board and talk about some of the issues and complaints that this council has received. Talk about how we can remedy the situation. Again, we do control the field. That is a situation that we do have. So I would probably not encourage us to start up a competing league, because you really only have a limited number of kids, and you really want one league. And the goal is to figure out how to make this thing work. I mean, Terry does a very great job with like soccer and running those programs, and there are things that can be done. And when you do anything with a large volunteer basis, it gets very hard. So again, if the council so desires,
I would like for you to look into it, but I also would like you to look into what agreements John French drew up with these people, this board. I mean, is it a legal document, or has he just said, here, you run it?
And that's kind of where it was from my recollection, and Terry stepped in where it was, where you can, is the city was providing this umbrella insurance, and they had this board, and then John French said, look, you guys are Little League, really, most cities don't run their Little Leagues. They're kind of their own entity. They go out and get their own things, and there are smaller cities that probably are the exception, but you have a board. They have to report, they make the rules, and do the fundraising and the like, and do all that. Now, John, because they had their own independent board, kind of just said, okay, you guys are off on your own, go get your own insurance, go do this, we'll provide you the fields. But again, if council so desires, I will look at everything that we have and kind of lay this thing out and track it out for you and say where we're at, what the agreements are, and I'll set up a meeting with the board to discuss these issues if that's so the desire of the council.
I concur with that, and just a comment from the parents and from many calls I've got, there's kids that have left their program and gone to other cities because they don't like the way it's being run. So it's going to be the same program, only under city rules and city control, and I think we will get the same kids will still play, and even more under city control.
But just be aware, if the city takes it over, this league will not be free of complaints.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
You will always have people complaining.
We realize that.
I've always subscribed to the fact you just put kids out there and let them play. They're fine. Keep the parents away.
Exactly.
But I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I have not ever gotten one phone call about any of Terry's programs. Basketball, soccer, anything. But that baseball program this last week, it was ugly.
But we can make rules for the field. Leave them running their program, but make rules for the field. Arguments, we can make restrictions. You break that rule.
We need, the city and I can do this, and we can have council representation as well. Probably needs to sit down with some board members and kind of lay things out and identify some areas that need some assistance and identify a lot of the complaints that you as council members are hearing, and you convey those to me. I'll make sure I convey those. And before we sign another agreement with them, making sure that everything is on the table. And if it goes down the road that the mayor and council member Caton are saying, and the city takes over the program, so be it. I'm not going to advocate that we do that, but what I'm saying is if you want me to have that discussion and make all of these things public and get, track this whole thing back, okay, how did we lose control of the program and those types of things, I'm willing to do that.
Sit down with them, talk about the problems. I'm sorry.
I've watched a lot of baseball, and the biggest problem that I see out there is the people that are actually running the programs. They have the wrong interest at heart. They should be out there. It's supposed to be recreational. But it's not. The whole thing is to win. That's all there is. And they put too much emphasis on winning. And these coaches, they coach too hard. They belittle the children, the young people. And that's the last thing a coach should be doing. You can go out there, you can watch any game, and any weekend. You can be in Gustine or you can be in Newman and see exactly the same thing. And, like you said, Michael, no matter if the city takes it over, you still have those people involved in these programs, you're going to have problems. And it bothers me that the parents should be more concerned about those men that are coaching their children and make sure that they're doing a good job and they're encouraging their children to learn to play baseball, and rather to be belittling because they didn't get a hit or they missed a ball or something like that. There's too much of that. I see it all the time, and it bothers me.
I think, and then what kind of topped it for me is last week I was at a game watching. I was listening actually eavesdropping, because these people were having this discussion next to me, and in one particular instance, being a former coach and all that involved, 'cause I know when the league was ran under the direction of the recreation department, it was, man, each kid had to play so many innings, had to do this, had to do that, and I heard one parent say that another parent or another kid of another parent had been to every practice, been to every game, and because kid maybe not been as athletic as the other kids, played one inning all year long. One inning.
That's just not right.
No, that's
Nope.
acceptable.
Yeah, and I just kind of, my heart just kind of sunk, thinking if I was that parent, I'd probably been in the middle of some coach's face, because I don't care how bad the kid is. If nothing else, you stick them somewhere or you get him in there. How's he going to get better? And so I heard this other parent saying, oh, yeah, and he goes to every practice, never misses a practice, never misses a game. And the coach played his kid one inning all year long.
So if I'm seeing concurrence here, and it seems like I am, that I'll be scheduling a meeting with members of the board, doing some due diligence on the city's involvement in Little League up into which particular date, and then how that got separated, and then provide you copies of all of our agreements that we have at this particular time with the Little League board. And I can tell you they are on an annual basis. So.
I would love to be at that meeting.
Yeah.
Ed, would you like to join me at that meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
I would.
No guns.
Just these.
Terry, thank you, I guess. Was that
Any
the end
other
of your report? Or?
questions?
No.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks a lot.
That was
Thank
my
you.
question,
Good
and
report.
what knowledge you had on it, so thanks.
Comes the budget hog.
Randy, are you available at that meeting just in case?
Yeah, we may need to at least
I'll be there, I think. Mayor, members of City Council, a couple things I'd like to bring your attention to. Number one, when police chiefs are proud of the how their officers handle certain situations, it gives me great pleasure to stand here and to talk to you about one situation. And that is last Wednesday night at about 7:40, and the time is critical, 7:40 p.m., we received a call of a lost child from a frantic mother, a 6-year-old son, and had no idea where he was at, and probably had been missing perhaps up to about an hour prior to discovering his disappearance. And the time's important because we're pushed up against darkness around 8:30. And Sergeant Randy Richardson, and I'm here to sing his praises tonight, immediately took control of the situation, responded to the scene, conducted immediate search of the house to make sure the child wasn't there, and then called out resources to help with the search. He called the county, and we had Sheriff's Department personnel responding. He asked for the helicopter. The pilots were responding. CHP was notified. They were responding. We called out Public Works. Our Public Works personnel came out, and my kudos to them. The Volunteer Fire Department was notified. They responded. Westside Ambulance was notified. They responded. Within 20 minutes, Sergeant Richardson had over 40 people on scene, and he was coordinating and directing the search efforts to locate that child. And again, up against darkness, we searched the critical terrain. Unfortunately, we have to consider swimming pools and canals and so on and so forth. Fortunately, that wasn't the situation. The situation was his aunt had picked him up, was unable to notify mom, miscommunication, and happy ending, the child was safe and sound and returned home. I point this out not only for the kudos of Sergeant Randy Richardson, but we currently, I mean, not currently, but we always hear the expression, it takes a community to raise a child. In this situation, it took a community to locate a child. And kudos to the citizens of Newman. It speaks highly of the community that we have here. And then the very next day, as luck would have it, we received a frantic phone call from a mother whose 3-year-old daughter was missing. And once again, units arrived on scene and did what they're supposed to do, and that is search the house completely before we called in outside resources and expanded the search area. Officer Chad Earl talked to the mother. The mother said she had searched the house. The child was not in the house. He said, well, let's search it again. And lo and behold, the little girl had fallen asleep under mom's bed and was safe and sound. So within 24 hours, we had 2 situations that raised our anxiety levels. However, fortunately, both children were found safe and sound, again, due to the efforts of your police officers. I just want to report out to council and report out to the public, and that since I arrived here as your police chief, I've received numerous complaints about traffic enforcement efforts, and we need to increase those efforts on behalf of the police department, and we are. I have received many complaints about speed on Upper Road, speed on Hills Ferry Road, on Highway 33. That's not all inclusive, but for example, and we have stepped up our radar enforcement, speed enforcement on those streets. Tomorrow I'm going to be ordering additional radar guns, so we are stepping up the speed enforcement and traffic enforcement for the city of Newman. So if you're getting those complaints, please pass those complaints on to me. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Chief, do you think, we talked about this, that it would pay for an officer? We could actually pay for an officer just with the radar gun.
Well, that's a slippery slope for a police chief to
I know.
Because at the end of the year, you're going to want to see those revenues come in to support the cost of that officer. But, however, we can look at it as revenue enhancement. I would prefer to look at it as saving lives and preventing accidents.
Yeah.
And it's as an elected official, you would take, I believe, a lot of heat if you try to support more traffic tickets for more officers. And I would rather prefer, or my preference, is traffic safety and getting people to comply with the traffic laws.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Chief.
I just have 3 quick informational items. The notice to proceed has been issued to Tiger Construction for our sidewalk infill project on YOLO. All the utility companies have completed their work and vacated the premises, so work should be getting started very soon. In an effort to keep the construction costs to a minimum, the inspections will be done by Public Works staff. Doug Matose and I will personally take the documentation, record keeping, and everything that's required for the project. Yesterday we received 90% completed preliminary construction drawings and specifications for our 39-acre storage reservoir submitted to us by Ecologic. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be meeting with the chief plant operator and going over the construction plans and making our comments, getting them to Ecologic as the plant operator's going on a vacation, so he'll be gone for a few days. And also last week, I contacted Ecologic regarding a progress report on our sewer and water rate study. And I had an email yesterday from Tiffany Knapp saying that the guy who's working on it would have a report by the end of the month. So I'm going to contact him and see if we can get it for the next council meeting.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Ernie.
Thank you, Ernie. Any other staff reports? Seeing none. Items from city council members. Ed?
I don't have anything tonight. I think I've already brought my issue.
Ted?
We were talking about the banner, Mike.
City staff at the request of Councilman Kelly is researching the cost of placing a banner over Main Street that would honor the Lady Warrior softball team for their undefeated season. Unless I hear any objections from the council, we'd like to place that over Main Street in the project area of, Fresno Street and Main Street, Public Works staff is currently looking at what our resources are in terms of being able to stream that across, and then ideally would like to keep that up throughout the summer. So
That'd be great.
also, we'd probably at your convenience, we could either do it this year or next year. Is possibly do a proclamation for that team as well.
Is that the banner that he's paying for out of his
Yeah, out of my
promotion allowance?
$15,000, right?
Oh.
Each of us get 15,000. Is that what it is?
$15. Was that it, Ted? or-
That's community
Thanks.
promotions. Right
Thanks,
there.
John.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea also.
Yeah.
So,
Bob?
Yeah. Just to add to that, what about a key to the city? Is that some ceremony that we sometimes do?
I've never seen that ceremony happen here, but doesn't mean it can't happen. If that's what you desire, we could do
I
that.
don't know. I don't know. Just a thought. I had a question on the community service officer, and where are we at?
Great question. And the chief is in charge of Mr. Lopez, and I'm sure he'd be happy to report his progress.
Yes, our community service officers training is continuing, and he's doing a fantastic job. We have towed a couple of dozen abandoned vehicles already, so we're starting to clean up our streets, both on private property and on our streets. And he's now taken it to the next level, and it's going to start getting into the weed abatement as we get into the summer months. It's a multifaceted position because code enforcement entails so many different disciplines, and we want to make sure that he is ready to go on his own before we release him. But his training is going according to plan, and he's a very pleasurable individual. He worked with the community to get compliance, and he's been well received.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I mean, he's a pretty decent first baseman too.
Oh, he was my most valuable player.
That is
He's that big.
You're a kid.
Okay. Thank
He
you.
doesn't
Mike?
need a gun.
I've got a couple items this evening. First of all, I'd like to compliment the city manager and the staff on preparing a budget that once again was very easy to read and follow. Thank you very much. I know it makes it a lot easier for us to do that. We've seen some in the past that have been a little cumbersome, so thank you. Second topic is they're doing some new construction out on Hardin Road, and I see it's brand-new paved road, and now they've cut a gorge right down the middle of it to put in some sewer lines or anything. I would like to know if we can get that road back to original condition rather than a patched condition, because it looks like hell forever. And if they're gonna go in and make an addition to it, then they should be responsible for sending it back to the original condition and not a stinking patch down it. And the last thing that I have, funny little story, and as usual, a wife is always smarter than her husband. We removed some trees from the side of our house, from the road going, the street going in. And being a farmer, I was gonna go out and get the backhoe and pull the stumps out. Well, my wife said, "Where's the gas line?" That's a good question. They wouldn't put it underneath where they planted those trees. Well, not only was the gas line there, the electrical line was there, the cable line was there, and it came up and teed and went to my neighbors. So if I had done what I was going to do, when we cut the gas line, we probably would have had gas all over it, which wouldn't have mattered because we would have hit the electrical line.
Close to the neighborhood,
gas
Mike.
line.
Jeez.
Getting to the point. How many people in this town know where those underground utilities lie on their property? And I realize that it's probably impossible, other than through education, to get people to contact the underground USA, thank you, which will come out free and tell you where those are. But in the new subdivisions, I would like to know if there's a way that we can put a permanent mark in conjunction with PG&E, or have PG&E permanently mark where those are, so that that's will not happen in the future. Because not only would have been expensive, it also could have been injurious to myself and my neighbor would have probably lit up a cigarette instead of setting the electrical line.
Yeah, let's have a beer.
So that's what I have. If something along those lines could be accomplished, and Dean, if you could put an article in the paper saying, hey, not even a councilman as smart as he thinks he is. Thank God he has a wife. Thank
Call
Mr.
before you
Mayor.
dig, right? That's the old saying. You
That's
see the little
right.
signs, call before you dig. Thank you, Mike. And I had nothing this evening. I think enough's been said about some things that were irking me. With that, we will adjourn to closed session. We did have two. Huh?
2 items.
Oh, yeah, the fun runs on this Saturday. Forgot to mention that. I'm so busy with that.
Oh, my goodness.
We
I
had,
can't believe he missed
we
it.
had 2 items for closed session. We won't have item B. We will have 1 item negotiation with real property owner. Thank you for coming.